Hey guys, Don Wilson here, leader of the BC Libertarian Party, family lawyer, and occasional movie reviewer. I just got back in from Avengers Endgame, and I thought I'd do a quick reaction review. I'll do a short one, I think, here. Uh, so, overall, I thought the movie was okay. Uh, Neither great nor terrible. Uh, there were enough enough moments in the movie, enough enjoyable moments in the movie for me to not feel like it was a waste. I think they dealt with some of the major Avenger characters uh, honorably. I thought they gave some of them an honorable finale, so the movie was worth it in that sense and well written in that sense. I think the Russos, the directors of the film, ultimately, they were straddled with great difficulties. I mean, I can imagine making a movie like this, probably 100 cooks in the kitchen. Of course, the Captain Marvel movie just having been forced upon them. This just character that makes no sense being forced into the story. So considering what they were dealing with, I don't. I still respect the job they did, and they did have, I think, as I said, an honorable idea for the original Avengers, and for the most part, um, and they delivered on that to a significant extent. The movie suffered from a little bit from not knowing what it wanted to be. It was now I'm gonna probably go into spoilers a little bit here, so if you haven't seen it, um, before I say that, actually, before I go into spoilers, if you haven't seen it and you're deciding if you want to see it, I think if you're not a fan of the Avengers, you don't need to see this movie. This is not one I would recommend going to watch. If you are an Avengers fan, I think you probably have already seen it, so it doesn't really matter what I think. You could probably go without seeing it and just learning what happened, to be honest. In my opinion, it's not the best Avengers movie. Some of the things that ultimately happen, kind of cool, good to know that they happen to the characters, fitting ends in some cases. But Infinity War was certainly a better finale to their series than this movie. So, spoiler area of talking about the movie. I'll say spoilers again. I'm going to talk about the movie. If you haven't seen it and you don't like spoilers, you've been given warning. I was saying the movie didn't really know what it wanted to be in a sense. It was sort of half this time heist, is what they call it, this sort of time traveling adventure of the Avengers, which I thought was pretty good, although a little bit rushed and perhaps a little underdeveloped. And then the other half of the movie was another battle with Thanos. For me, I really didn't need to see the Avengers fighting Thanos again. Thought that was pretty cool in Infinity War, but seen it, done that. Really, I just didn't need to see it again, and that was half the movie here. I thought if they had just done the time heist and made that into a 2 hour movie of, you know, recollecting the stones, that would have been cool, I think, for me. And of course, they had to rebattle Thanos to some extent, but just make that a 15 or 20 minute thing, um, or an epilogue of some sort. So, the other part that disappointed me about the movie is that Captain Marvel is indeed in it. That's not a spoiler, of course. Um, she is in it, to my view, significantly. Her being in it at all is significant. I wasn't able to enjoy any of the movie that while she was in it, and it's a very strange experience for me because I want the Avengers to lose while she is on the screen. Like, I actively want Thanos and their enemies to vanquish her. Really, I want Thanos to kill her so badly. So, spoiler alert, unfortunately, Captain Marvel doesn't die. She exists like a tumor on this movie. and they, you know, the Russos do what they can with it, and they do a good job of pushing her aside and pushing her out of the story as much as they humanly can. But they're obviously their bosses kind of fucked them over, and stuck them with this character that they've got to deal with, and they do as best as they can. I'll say it at that. But she doesn't die, which I realized after watching it is the only outcome I would have been genuinely happy about. Anything short of that, even her just being in a scene, I would have been disappointed not seeing her character die. Her character doesn't die. So those were the two major disappointments of the film. All in all, it was as I said, there were enough entertaining, good moments, and there was enough consideration given to the main characters that it was rewarding, in that sense. But in terms of caliber, I was thinking about this movie, through about halfway through it. My sense of this movie was that it was saved by Ant-Man. So if you've seen Ant-Man, you'll know it's an okay movie, right? It's actually like kind of surprisingly decent. It's a movie that, for me, when I watched it, I was surprised that it didn't suck and that I actually enjoyed it and had some laughs and enjoyed following it along. So imagine that caliber Ant-Man. So that this movie needed Ant-Man to save it, which was sort of strange, but I think really true. Ant-Man does sort of save this movie, from its horrid start, all centered around Captain Marvel. And the directors have to do this whole tap dance thing to kick her out of the story, and thankfully, Ant-Man comes to the rescue of this movie and takes it up to kind of the level of Ant-Man. So that's, I think ballpark what it is. Maybe top half of MCU movies. I think I would probably need to chart it out to really decide that. So obviously I'm not super thrilled with it. I'm a bit frustrated right now because the previous movie was so enjoyable to watch. It's the end of a number of stories, and I wish it could have been better. Putting my grumpiness aside, I will recognize that ending a story like that is extremely difficult and is failed at more often than it's succeeded at. And I don't think the Russos failed here. I don't think it was a failure of a movie. So I will give them credit for not failing. And even there, as I said, there were some rewarding parts to it and some good ideas that they got up on the screen, even if as a whole the film doesn't really didn't really need to happen in the way that it did, and doesn't really stand for anything on its own. It does a fair job of closing out some of the characters that we've been watching for these last 10 years. So that's all. Best of luck. Good night. Oh, one more thing. New rating system. I'm going to use decimal places because I was having trouble before rating everything a 4.5 or a 4 or a 3.5. There's such a huge range in there, and like all of the movies I'm watching are somewhere in there, and it's like I was coming down to just having 3 gradations, which really made no sense. So I'm going to start using decimal places and see if that helps. I think this was a 3.6 out of 5. Kind of a fair movie, competent, but nothing too special. Good night.